Hello, my name is Hakon, and welcome back to my channel, all you fabulous fighting fantasy aficionados, for another episode of my playthrough through Armies of Death. I'm still sort of on my first playthrough, using the finger bookmark method whenever I happen to die, going back one step and continuing from there, which, as I have explained several times, is not cheating. It's just saving time, because you could have done exactly the same, made exactly the same choices, rolled the same dice, and if you just keep doing that and going the same path over and over again, you will end up in the same situation, one step behind, everything else being equal. So, just a short recap of Armies of Death, where I am at the moment. So this is Fighting Fantasy Gamebook number 36. If you haven't watched the previous episodes in this series, I would recommend doing that. You don't have to if you don't want to, but there will be some details that I might forget to mention. I will try to keep you up to speed and remind you, as well as myself, exactly what happened previously. Hang on, just 2 seconds. I just need to. Yep. Okay, I'm good. Just double checking my phone is on silent so it doesn't disturb my playthrough. Even though, of course, if somebody calls, I will probably have to pick it up anyway, but at least the sound will not disturb the playthrough. Okay, so in Armies of Death, you are, which is the sequel to Trial of Champions, which in itself is kind of a sequel to Death Trap Dungeon. In Armies of Death, you are the winner of the Trial of Champions, the dastardly difficult dungeon of in Fang. And you won your prize money, which is enough, of course, to live several lifetimes in luxury. But for whatever reason, your character has chosen to buy a castle and fund a private army. I mean, as you do. It's a lottery winner kind of syndrome, isn't it? You spend it on silly things. So, and it just so happens that at this time there is an evil being called Aglax. The what's it called? Aglax the demon. Aglax something. Who has amassed an army of orcs, goblins, and undead, and he is marching on the kingdom in which you live. And for whatever reason, whoever is usually in charge of these kinds of things, they don't seem to have stepped up to the plate, and you've decided with your tiny, tiny, tiny little army, which is so small, why would you even call it an army? You have decided to march against Aglax and to see if you can recruit some more people on the way. So this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But there you go. This is what happens when you win the lottery and you get bored after you've spent it on silly things. So, so far in this game, you've heading towards Zengis in order to recruit more men there. On the journey to Zengis, first of all, you have been given the option of traveling by sea or overland. Because some kind of scruffy, dodgy-looking sea captain comes and asks if you want a ride on his ship, which I turned down. I still think that sounds dodgy to me. You leave town, I can't remember which town, and you head towards a marsh, not a march. You march towards a marsh, and maybe there's some kind of tongue twister in there somewhere, isn't it? If you have Martians marching towards the marsh. In March, in the month of March. Yeah, I'll come up with something. Anyway, so you're marching towards the marsh, and you are given the option of going through or around, and I chose to go around, where you see a little cabin in which there is what appears to be an elven lady in distress that you try to help and get killed, because it turns out to be a kind of a witch or something that has shape shifted or created an illusion to make you fall into the trap of trying to rescue this elf maiden. That's how I ended the first time. And then you I'll just look at my map now so I can see if I can remember what else happens. Then you come across an oak tree that has a door in it. You open it, you break in actually, which I explained at length the moral implications of breaking and entering. And this is something I will broach on every now and again because I think it is really important when you think about game books as solo role-playing games. The clue is in the name, that role-playing game. That also implies to me, and I think this is really important, that you are given moral choices with moral implications, and that when you make those choices, you will then have to stand by it. So it's very important that whatever happens, that any kind of moral decisions that the character that you play in the book takes, that is based on an actual choice that you as a player gets to make, and that it's not something that just follows on from something else. Because you should, in a role-playing game, get to decide what you do that has to do with moral decisions of right and wrong, whether you're going to break into someone's house, if you want to attack someone, is that justified to you as a moral decision? Stealing, things like that. So very important, I think, and something that many gamebook writers seem to not be aware of, or certainly not doing it right. And it's very glaring to me when and there has been a few cases, Masks of Mayhem, and was there something in Rebel Planet as well? Oh, certainly in Masks of Mayhem, where you decide to do one thing. Oh, Robot Commando, was it? Was it Rebel Planet? I'm mixing them up in my head now. I think it was Rebel Planet, isn't it? Where you are given a choice to do one or two things. They both seem quite innocuous, but then your character makes a moral decision after the fact that leads to murder, to his becoming a murderer. So those things are very jarring to me, and I think it's very important that you get to make the moral decisions. I'm digressing. Okay, so in this tree, which seems fair game, when you think about it, I've decided my character is a little bit like that. He is the end justifies the means. He is obviously traumatized from being enslaved and having to been forced to go through the trial of champions, and obviously is not quite of sound mind, buying a castle and a private army and things. He's a bit erratic. It's not just his fault. He has PTSD, seriously. So he steals from this goblin his stash of treasures, including a beetle amulet, which of course later turns out to be something that strangles you. This goblin that owned these things have gone to fight for Aglax, and I reasoned, I think quite fairly, that if he didn't bring the amulet, that was because it wouldn't give him any advantages, and it was indeed cursed. Or perhaps it only works if worn by a goblin, who knows. So that was my another end I came to, and then I keep going on. So in my previous playthrough now, I tried to recruit some hillmen. Oh, that was like one time before. I tried to recruit some hillmen, that didn't work out. And what else happened? Then I get to Zengis, and I get to a bar. And this is quite sort of stock fighting fantasy or role-playing game kind of scenario. When you get into the town here, your first thing you do is go to the bar and try to get information, or you're trying to recruit men. I made a silly bet with a rogue, and the bet that came up just completely at random, and it was which blob of jam, fruit jam on the table would first attract a fly. Yeah. And I won. Silly things like that. I managed to walk into a place where there was a pie eating competition, which I also won. I went into a shop and bought some random things. And also, yes, and I won in the bet with a rogue. I won a brooch that has a number on it, and of course we know Ian Livingstone fighting fantasy game books, numbered items, always something important there. And then I got to a bit where, what was the last thing that happened again now? Yes, so I went into this alleyway and there was some goblins that came out of the sewer, so there's something going on in the sewers. And then there was somebody in the bin, and I opened the bin and there was a leprechaun, and I attacked the leprechaun, which you really shouldn't do. And then he paralyzed me, stole all my money, and I decided that was a good time to let it go, and there was a luck roll, and I decided to lose that luck roll, and then some goblins came out of the sewers and brutally murdered me, and that was the end of that. And so I'm going to go back to before I bothered the leprechaun. The leprechaun is not going to be bothered, and no leprechauns will have been harmed in the making of this episode. So that's where we are at the moment, and I think I'll just get started. Just move to the right. There we are. So I got my supplies, I got my pen, dice, book, and of course my maps. This is the one I've been working on now. This is the first page, and only on page 2, so clearly there is quite a bit left to go here. So where is the... Yes, so basically I go into this alleyway, I defeat the goblins, and instead of looking at the bins, it doesn't seem to do me any good whatsoever. I'm going to check out the sewer, paragraph 31. Okay, so that's where I'm starting. You climb down a metal-runged ladder that is secured. I think I'm going to need, just before I even start doing this, I'm going to need to move this to a new page of map, because I've mapped myself into a corner here. So FF36 number 3. Okay, so I'm just going to move 31 actually to this page as well. Okay. You climb down a metal-runged ladder that is secured to the side of the wall until you reach the sewer below. The foul stench rising from the sludge that is flowing slowly by makes you heave. Looking down the sewer, you see what appears to be the flickering flame of a candle. And you can just hear the sound of a whispering voice. You are convinced that there must be more sewer goblins ahead. If you wish to walk down the sewer, turn to 232. If you would rather climb back up the ladder, turn to 300. So we've got a... Obviously, I'm going to check it out. Yeah. 300. Leave or 232. 232. Okay. So 232 it is. With your sword gripped in your hand, you walk cautiously down the tunnel. The light from the flickering candle grows brighter as you approach it. A figure comes into view, and you see at once that it is much taller than a sewer goblin. It is a man, carrying a poleaxe and a shield, and muttering to himself. When he sees you emerge out of the shadows into the light of his candle, he stops and says, "Have you seen any sewer goblins come this way?" You tell him about the 2 that tried to rob you. "Good. I'll go and cut their ears off so that I can collect my bounty. That's my job, see? Zengis has a lot of trouble with its sewer goblins, but not many people like to work down here clearing them out. You did me a favor. Now can I do one for you in return?" Oh, so this is like the exterminator, I suppose, trying to rid the town of its vermin. I suppose in Zengis, perhaps you're never more than 8 feet away from the sewer goblin. Right. Would you ask him if he knows anything about Starstone Caves, or ask him to sell you his helmet for 5 gold pieces? That's a bit random, isn't it? Sell him your helmet. Already, and also I bought a helmet already, didn't I? But, so, you have been given no indication up to this point why you would be interested in this helmet. It's described as a man carrying a poleaxe and a shield. Why would you then suddenly ask about his helmet? So this is sloppy writing. Sorry, I have to... because if there was something about the helmet, then that's the first thing that should have been described. Is a man wearing an interesting helmet of some kind. It is like this and like that, and it looks like that, and it's very shiny, and it looks more shiny than it should do, and all those kinds of things. But no, he's a man wearing a poleaxe and a shield. And then suddenly, can I buy your helmet? No, that doesn't work, does it? So, Starstone Caves, 99 caves, or 201 helmet. I'm going to ask about the caves. Yeah, I'm not going to give a toss about the helmets. 99. Because the book doesn't actually tell me I'm supposed to give a toss about the helmet, apart from the fact that I'm willing to pay 5 gold for it. The Starstone Caves, you say? Yes, I've been there. Dangerous place, full of traps. They were put there by the Oracle, who hates visitors, but the Oracle will speak to most people who can survive his traps and make it to his inner sanctum. That sounds just like the perfect thing for Ian Livingstone, because he can put in lots of insta-deaths. It's a challenge, you see. He hates time wasters. He'll only spend time with people who really need to see him. But even then, he'll want a few gifts, depending on what information you seek. I suggest you get yourself a guide. Go to Khan. That's about the only place where you'll find one. No, that was actually the end of the sentence. Go to Khan. That's about the only place you will find one. Yes. You thank the bounty hunter for the information and walk back with him along the tunnel. Leaving him to collect his evidence from the dead sewer goblins, you decide what to do next. If you have not done so already, you may inspect the barrels or walk back down the... no, barrels, not bins. I'm calling them bins. I'm just feeling like he's living in a bin. Anyway. The leprechaun, that is. Or walk back down the alley and turn left into the street. So let's just put 99 and say clue caves. So I should go to Khan, find a guide. So that's important. And so find guide Khan. Okay, so that sounds like important information. It's something you might have been able to glean on your own, but it sounds more useful than a helmet at this moment. Right, so we have 177, which is move along now, or going back to 137, which I have on my let's see, so 137. Okay. So I'm going to move along now and go to 177. So at the corner of the street, you arrive at a stone building. It has a sign painted on the window in crude whitewash letters, which reads Max's Marauders, Swords for Hire. If you wish to enter the building, turn to 63. If you would rather keep walking around the corner to the left, I'm just walking around the block. Turn to 314. So we have 314 or 63. Now, even though I'm not enamored with the idea of the army and stuff like that, I suppose I'll see what I can get out of here after this one. The street door opens into a single room, in the center of which 2 men are engaged in a practice sword fight with wooden swords. They are being watched by 7 other men. At the far end of the room, a striking blonde woman wearing leather armor is shouting out instructions to the 2 fighters. Stop, she shouts suddenly. Take a rest while I see what this intruder wants. Suddenly, if you have a shop and you have a door and it says a sign that's saying you offer a service, are you an intruder? That's how to make guests welcome, isn't it? She walks over to you and says, I'm Max, and these are my boys. Do you want to join them or hire them? You reply that you may be interested in hiring them. My boys are the best. 200 gold pieces and all 10 of us are yours. Will you pay Max the price she wants, haggle over the price, refuse the offer, and leave? So, I'm guessing there might be leeway for haggling, but I'm not going to do it. Let's see, 2. Haggle, pay. Okay. I'm just going to pay 200 gold. Okay. You tell Max to go and meet Lexon at your camp outside Zengis, where she will receive her payment of 200 gold pieces. Deduct this from your adventure sheet, which is the first time it's actually told you how to interact with your adventure sheet at all. But it still doesn't say that you're supposed to add the men to your adventure sheet, which should be a given, really. So if these are 10 warriors, indeed, as I think they are, I've now got 115 warriors. I haven't really kept track of my gold. I got some gold at some point, didn't I? Did I get some gold? Yeah, never mind. It's not important. I'm not going to be too fussed about the details of bookkeeping for this particular game. So, you will not regret hiring us, she says as she leads her men away. You watch her for a few moments before turning the corner and walking on up the street. Okay, so 314. The street soon turns to the left again, and as the shadows of darkness start to creep out from the sides of the buildings, you decide that it is time to find an inn. One called Helen's House is the first that you come to, and it offers rooms for 1 gold piece a night. If you wish to spend the night at Helen's House, turn to 368. If you would rather find somewhere else, turn to 146. Again, I haven't really been given any reason why I should choose one or the other. This is one thing, of course, that I have mentioned before when it comes to Ian Livingstone and his way of writing, is that he doesn't usually give you clues or hints, I should say. That is to say, something in the text that gives you an indication of what the correct choice might be. Which something Steve Jackson is very good at, and I think it makes it so much more satisfying playing a game book when you are given hints and then you realize that you picked up on a hint. It's also one of those things that makes you own your choices, because then you can say that, yeah, I should have known because A, B, and C, or whatever else the hint was, that was a wrong choice. Or you can say, feel satisfied that you made the right choice. And of course, sometimes the text confirms that that is the only correct choice, and I think that's something that gives you a little boost of the same kind of thing you get when you win on a slot machine. I presume that makes you feel very satisfied having been successful and having done the right thing. So a bit of that dopamine hit, I suppose. But not having any indication whatsoever what this place is about or whether any other place might be better, I'm going to go to Helen's house and see what this is about. The door opens into a small reception room which has low oak beams and white walls. In the wall opposite, a fire is burning in the hearth, and above it is a painting of a small sailing boat. A man is sitting in a high-backed leather chair in front of the fire, vigorously polishing a silver cup. You clear your throat to get his attention, and he turns towards you and says, "Oh, I beg your pardon, but I didn't hear you come in. As you can see, I'm busy polishing up this cup we won at sailing. But I don't want to bore you with my sailing stories. A room will cost you 2 gold pieces, including breakfast." Wasn't it just 1 gold a few moments ago? Anyway, never mind. You pay for the room and wait for the man to give you the key. He stands up, but instead leans against the hearth and looks admiringly at the painting. Ah, Harim was a great boat with a great crew. We left all the other boats clean behind and won all our races except for one, and that was lost only because of Spike's navigation. If you want to butt in and ask the man for the key, turn to 81. If you are prepared to be patient and listen to the man's story, turn to 183. Right, so clearly I'm been giving very strong hints now that this guy really wants to tell his story, which means Ian Livingstone really wants to write his story. So I am going to listen to his story. Okay. Not in a hurry, am I? The man whose name you learn is Obiji goes on at length about a whole series of races, walking around the room and mimicking the antics of the crew. Would you like to see a drawing of the crew? He finally asks. Turn to 230 if you would. Let's see. Just occurs to me, maybe the crew will want to join me as soldiers in my army. I'll look at the photo of the crew. There we are. Obiji opens a cupboard drawer and pulls out a leather-bound book. He opens the book at a marked page and hands it to you. There are 8 people in the picture, each dressed in heavy oilskins. That's me, he says proudly, pointing to the drawing of himself. And that's our skipper, Priest, with a funny hat on. Spike's the one with his hair sticking up, and Ewan is the young one going bald before his time. Werewolf, the bearded one, Quill's son is the one with long hair, and the couple there are Clark and his lass, Welts. Perhaps one day we'll take on Connor himself. He is the best in all of Alancia. Sails in the old world across the Western Ocean, but his reputation is known to all. But that's enough about me. What about you? So, I don't know, is there some kind of clue in this picture? One wonders. Is there some clue in this picture? I'm wondering if, I'm just guessing now. So, there's 2 potential clues here, I suppose. Oh, 2 potential styles of clues. You might encounter one of these people before. No, sorry, not before. You might encounter one of these people later in the book, at which point saying that you know about them might make a difference to the outcome of whatever encounter that might be. Although that may, of course, be in the form of a choice when you get there, but yeah. Werewolf. Yeah, I think I've actually moved past the picture of a werewolf in here. Maybe there's a werewolf. Maybe that werewolf is actually this guy called Werewolf. And maybe if you have this encounter and see this picture, you will actually be able to get past that werewolf without any trouble. Maybe. So I'm going to put this down as a 230 clue question mark. Might be something there that is useful later. You decide to tell Obiji about your quest, and his eyes widen in amazement. I'm afraid I'm too old to join your campaign, but I would like to help your cause, he says before disappearing into a back room. He reappears in a moment holding a magnificent sword. If this cannot slay a demon, nothing can, he says with a smile. Leave me yours and you can have it. You examine the sword and see that it is of a remarkable craftsmanship. You do not hesitate to make the swap. At one point to your skill, and of course, as usual, since basically all the books since Warlock of Firetop Mountain, it's not made clear that this is combat skill. Yeah. I don't know why they never streamlined. I mean, they actually moved away from a system that worked in the first book, and it would have been so easy to generate a system that works by rolling for skill, but that roll affecting 2 abilities, your skill and your combat skill. And then combat skill very clearly is the one that can go up and down with no upper limitations, because it has to do with equipment as well. So because it's your ability to inflict injury in the combat and your ability to avoid being injured, which means it goes up. Your ability to inflict injury goes up as you get a better weapon. Your ability to become injured goes down as you get better armor and shields. And so it's part of the equipment as well. So anyway, +1 skill, which is always amazing. Which means I probably have 13 now, because I would have given myself 12 just for simplicity's sake. OBG then hands you the key to your room and wishes you good night as you climb the stairs. Turn to 376. So we have here 376. So in this case, it sounds like these are correct choices because you gain something from it. So I'm just going to do that on my map to indicate that. And then we go to 376. You lock the door behind you and slump gratefully into the soft bed. You are asleep in seconds and do not wake until the morning, when there is a loud knocking at the door. Breakfast is ready, shouts OBG. After a large plate of ham and eggs, you feel ready to take on Aglax himself. Peaceful sleep and plentiful food have done you a lot of good. Add 2 points to your stamina. Don't need it, but I'll just make a note of it all the same. You finally say farewell to OBG and walk out into the street. After walking less than 100 yards, the street ends at a junction. If you wish to go left, turn to 65. If you wish to turn right, turn to 268. So again, you can see, you got eyes. What does the street look like left and right? It's just too random. And also, I don't know what I'm actually looking for at this point. So I'm not sure. 65 to 68. I'm going to turn right, 268 in this case. You soon come to another junction in the street. If you wish to turn left, 338. If you wish to walk straight on, 102. This is a bit dull, isn't it? It's almost like we got a bit bored with actually doing this properly now, and it just, yeah. 102 and 338. Now I'm going to turn left. 338. As you pass by an open stable door, you hear the sound of a scuffle coming from inside. You peer around the door and see a dwarf on his knees trying to pull the clawed hands of his reptilian attacker away from his throat. His adversary is green and scaly, and its spines have burst through its brown clothing. A long tail swishes from side to side, and a forked tongue flicks in and out of its long-toothed jaw. "Help!" cries the dwarf. "A shape changer has got me." That's what you would say, isn't it? When you can... I mean, help would suffice. If you wish to help the dwarf, turn to 22. If you would rather walk on, turn to 149. Moral choice, again, I guess. Do I help someone in need, or do I just leave them to their fate? My character might actually... I mean, what I've established as a guy who's got PTSD and things, and he might say much sort of, yeah, whatever. But I don't know. He's marching his private army towards someone. It's definitely not his job to do that. He is actually wanting to help people. So, yeah. So I think I'm going to help this dwarf. 22, 149. So I go to 22. As you enter the stable, the shape changer throws the half-strangled dwarf to the floor and turns its bloodied claws towards you. Shape changer, skill 10, stamina 10. If you win, turn to 361. Of course, I win that one. I'm not going to roll the dice, as you know. You rush to the dwarf's side and find that he is still breathing. "Pills!" he gasps. "Pills in my pouch! Give me one! Hurry!" You do as he asks and give him one of the 3 green pills from his pouch. In less than a minute, he has revived completely. Even the wounds on his neck are beginning to heal. "A wizard gave me the pills as reward for saving his life. Now I'm going to give you one of them for saving mine," says the happy dwarf. You may use this pill at any time except during combat. Although it would be easy to use a pill during combat, seriously. It will restore 8 points of stamina. Ooh, fancy. Let's see. Pill. The dwarf goes on to tell you how the shape changer had created an illusion to make itself appear as an old man. In this guise, it entered the dwarf's stable on the pretext of wishing to buy a donkey. As soon as we went inside, it attacked me and began to change back to its original form. Thanks to you, I'm still alive. Look through its clothing and help yourself to any booty you find. You reach down and rummage through the torn clothing. In an inside pocket, you discover a gold seal with the number 332. Okay, so we got 2 items of gold, both with numbers. And that indicates to me that if there are any red herring items in this book, they might actually be made of something else but gold. Hang on, I've got a phone call coming in, so excuse me for a few moments. Right, I am back in the room. Yeah, so number 332. So I was thinking, if there are any red herrings, they might not be made of gold. That's one of the ways that, yeah, numbered items, very Ian Livingstone. Anyway. Not bad, exclaims the dwarf as you spin the seal up in the air and catch it with your other hand. You say farewell to the dwarf and go back into the street. So at the moment, this looks, again, like somewhere that you definitely should be going. And I'm a bit surprised here because normally when you find these things that you would also get the luck point, wouldn't you? But not in this case, and there hasn't been much use of luck, I guess, in this book. Not many luck tests anyway so far, unless I've missed them. I mean, there might have been on other paths. You say farewell to the dwarf and go back into the street. Turn to 149. The street continues straight on until you find yourself back at the main entrance gates to Zengis. Remembering your promise to Lexon, you decide to return to your waiting army. Turn to 113. Okay, so now we are back on the campaign, as it were. 113. There we are. You arrive at the camp before noon and are greeted enthusiastically. You give the order to march. If you wish to cross the River Cock and march south, turn to 262. If you would rather march east towards the Forest of Fiends, turn to 84. I'm supposed to go south, aren't I? Because I need to get to the Oracle. So I'm not heading for the forest yet. And maybe it's the Oracle that wants the numbered items, quite possibly. So east 260. Just double check my map now. I'm quite sure this is. So I am in Zengis. I want to get to Khan and then to Starstone. So I don't want to go over here just yet. So I want to go down here and then I go north again. That's the plan. Are we sharply in focus today, by the way? Because I'm wondering if I should move the focus up just a little bit. I thought it looked okay earlier, but just moving it just a little bit. So how is that? Is better, isn't it? Yes, that is definitely better. Okay, at least it looks better to me on my screen, so hopefully it looks better on yours too. I wish there was a manual focus on this camera. That would have been so much easier. There is a ring on it, but that is for the privacy. Actually, I'll show you that. It's got a privacy aperture, and you can close like that. And but that's a really nice big ring. And if that was the focus ring, that would have been absolutely amazing. Or it should have been possible to use both the ring and, yeah. Anyway. 262, I am marching south. How am I doing for time? 42 minutes, yeah. Okay. I might have to go soon because I'm expecting a parcel as well. Right, the army marches east along the riverbank until you come to a wooden bridge. The crossing takes place without any problem. That's a bit boring. And the river is soon left behind as you march southwards across the pagan plain. By late afternoon, you have put many miles behind you. You give the order to halt, to enable your warriors to drink at a watering hole. Unknown to you, however, the water has been poisoned by one of Aglex's spies, and many of your warriors begin to fall sick. Within an hour, half of them are too ill to march. If you wish to wait for them to recover, turn to 75. If you would rather head south with 15 hand-picked warriors who are still well, turn to 296. I'm going to leave them to recover and pick them up again later, I think. So 75. Let's see, wait, and yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to take a small little band with me and head south. 2 hours later, you make out a lone figure walking slowly towards you. You can soon see that this is an old woman hobbling along, clutching a wooden stick for support. As you walk past her, she holds out her hand and says in a croaky voice, "Spare me a gold piece." If you wish to give her a gold piece, turn to 156. If you would rather march on without stopping, turn to 38. Okay. 38, march. And 1, 5, 6 golds. Ugh. What's the worst that can happen? I could give her a gold piece. The old woman thanks you profusely and reaches for your right hand with both of hers. "Let me read your palm," she says. She opens your hand, pulls it towards her crinkled face, and lets out a series of oohs and ahs. Finally, she looks up and says, "You are an adventurer on a very important mission. To fulfill that mission, make sure you drink the water of the gods. Death awaits if you don't." Without saying another word, she hobbles off and you march south again. So that might be a hint. 156, water of the gods. This might be something to do with the traps in down where the oracle is, I'm thinking, possibly. 38. You come across a worn track which runs north and south. You decide to follow it to the south. Well, I came from the north, so, well, obvs. Soon you arrive at a signpost which also points south and reads Khan 5 miles. If you wish to keep heading south towards Khan, turn to 266. If you'd rather head southeast, turn to 331. So this is where, if you hadn't picked up on that little clue about having to get a guide and then going to the oracle, and you just knew to go to the oracle first, you might have skipped Khan and then gone straight down. But now we know that we should go to Khan first to find a guide. So we'll be given two choices now. First to go towards the forest in the east or south towards the caverns, and then this one to Khan or towards the caverns. And both of those choices, since you had the prior knowledge, the hints that you have picked up, you know where to go first. So that's quite good. Okay, so 266, Khan, and 331 south east. The light is quickly fading as the village of Khan comes into view. The village is a well-known stopover for travelers and is the last human village for many a mile. It comprises some 50 buildings, many of which are taverns, general stores, and gambling halls. You take your men into an inn and tell them to eat well and get to bed early, as you intend to leave at first light in the morning. Am I not paying for this? You just been given a few occasions where you've been charged 1 gold piece or 2 gold pieces for something, and now you've got a band of 15 men going to an inn, and you have to, well, feed them and water them as well. Yeah. You decide to walk around the village after your own meal. If you wish to enter the Blue Pig Tavern to find a guide, turn to 357. If you would rather go to the gambling house, turn to 100. So we know we need to get a guide, so that is, again, we have prior information. That means we know what we should do. 357. The strongest handgun in the world. That's the Magnum 44, not the 357. Okay. The tavern is quite small inside and there are not many customers. The atmosphere seems friendly, so you make your way over to the bar and ask if the barman knows of any guides. He points to a table in the far corner and says, why are the people that you're trying to get to always in the far corner, aren't they? They're sort of sitting there huddled up all by themselves with a hooded cloak, and nobody knows who they are. They're a bit mysterious. They're not talking to anyone. They're just sitting quietly having their drink. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? So wouldn't it be fun for just once if some kind of semi-shady, dodgy character you're looking for in a bar, he is in there, he's dancing on the tables, he's the life and soul of the party, he's the one who's made everyone put their tables together and do a sing-along and all kinds of things, and then it turns out he's a really shady character, and no, it has to be the mysterious stranger in the corner. Okay. They call him Strider around these parts. Okay. Right. Ask old Thog over there. He used to be the best. You walk over to the table and sit down next to an old battle-scarred warrior. You explain that you want to hire a guide. Where do you want to go? He asks in a deep voice. Will you reply, through the Forest of Fiends or to the Starstone Cave? So again, you get a choice that is where you need to know those hints that I have picked up. So actually, at the moment, it's looking quite good for the path I'm following to be roughly the correct path. This might be a very linear one, though. I'm not sure. It feels relatively linear at this point, but it's hard to tell when I've only done a single playthrough as well. So 319 forest, 057 caves, and I want to go to the caves, as we know. So you are another foolish person who wishes to see the oracle, are you? If you decide to reply yes, turn to 144. If you prefer to reply no, turn to 27. Well, and this is where, in a real role-playing game, I would say no. I'm not foolish to see the oracle, but of course no in this case might actually mean no. So, I don't know. I'm just going to say that yes, I am going to see the oracle. Nothing foolish about it. Okay. Just double up the 57 there, and then we are going to say 27 no or 144 yes. I don't know if you know it already, continues Thog, But the Starstone Caves is a very dangerous, trap-ridden system of passageways and caves, one of which is the hideaways of the Oracle. Even though he has many powers to offer this land, he really loathes all the lying, cheating, thieving, hypocrisy, deceit, and all the other bad ways of the beings in Nalancia. He will tolerate those who show initiative, however, and if you survive his traps, that will show initiative enough. He'll speak with you. And I'll take you there for 30 gold pieces. You pay Thog his fee and go back with him to the inn. Early next morning, you rouse... I'll just put here minus 30 gold. Early next morning, you rouse your men and are soon marching south eastwards. Thog starts to tell you all about his adventures, which after 2 hours become extremely boring. Okay. Becomes, actually, there's a grammatical error here. After 2 hours becomes extremely boring. It's not the adventures that are becoming boring, it's the telling of them, which is singular. So what about his adventures, which after 2 hours becomes extremely boring? Editorial mistake, I guess. Before noon, you gave the order to rest for food, just to stop Thog from talking. Even so, he rambles on, spitting crumbs from his mouth while describing the more exciting moments from his tales. Thankfully, you reach the Starstone Caves before dusk and ask Thog to tell you all he knows. You could have asked him that before, instead of hearing about the adventures, but yeah, okay. 2 things I should tell you, he replies. Always turn right at every junction. And if you have to choose a number you can see, don't choose one with a 4 in it. Okay, so that's 2 super important clues there. So this is clues. So no, 4 and turn right every junction. What questions the Oracle will ask you, I'm afraid you will have to answer for yourself. You must go on your own and find out. You wave goodbye to your men before disappearing into the mouth of the dark cave, a lit candle in one hand and your sword in the other. Turn to 219. And now it's the mandatory dungeon crawl. So this one has it all. It has overland travel. It has city breaks, and the ubiquitous and mandatory dungeon crawl. So here we are. Okay, 219. Oh, and the tavern. Of course, that's taverns. The cave funnels down and shops. The cave funnels down into a passageway which is dark and cold. Droplets of water fall from the ceiling with a loud plop. And I'm wondering if perhaps this is a good place to actually take a break, because if I want to get through the cavern now and find the Oracle, it's going to bring me over my episode length that I'm really aiming for these days, and I'm really hungry, and I've got a delivery coming up in 1 minute possibly as well on my door. So I'm going to speak of the devil. Just a moment. Right, I am back again. So that was right on time. When DPD delivers something, they give you a 1 hour window, and mine said 12:22 to 1:22, and it was, I think actually it was a few seconds before 12:22, so it was early by a few seconds. Anyway, you could have just delivered it in my garage, but let's just change. Okay, so there we are. So that's this episode, I think, done. I'll go into the dungeon next time and take it from there. I think that was quite an interesting episode because in this one, more so than the previous episodes, I feel that I've passed through many sections of the book now where it's very clear that what I've been doing, the choices I've made, have been the correct ones. I've got some very important items, some very important clues and hints, and I do feel I'm on the right track. And of course, when you are on the right track and you feel that this is going really well, it can be quite enjoyable, can't it, to play game books? Very satisfying, especially when you then get to make decisions based on the things that you've been learning on the way. So yeah, so far I'm quite enjoying this one. Although, of course, that's not to say that the ending is not going to be good or bad. Of course, you never know. But we'll see. Whatever the case is, I am still enjoying playing this, and I will play again one of these days, and I will see you then. So thanks for watching to all of you, and you know how to support my channel and where you can find links to things. So goodbye for now. Bye bye.